LaLaurie Mansion is located in the French Quarter. Most people probably know of this place because of American Horror Story, based around Madame LaLaurie, her house, and the things she did.
LaLaurie Mansion stood proudly in New Orleans, filled with laughter, music, and the city's most powerful guests. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But behind those beautiful walls, something deeply disturbing was hidden for years.
In real life, Madame LaLaurie most likely was the first female serial killer in America. A lot of people died at that house. It was at the hands of Madame LaLaurie.
When the truth finally came out, it shocked everyone who heard it. This was not just a story of cruelty, but a long-hidden pattern of pain that many people chose to ignore. Even today, the building still holds questions that have never been fully answered. It is not just about what happened back then, but about what was quietly allowed to happen. So now, the real question is simple. What else was hidden inside those walls that no one has ever found? Join us to find out. Hidden horrors beneath the LaLaurie Mansion. The LaLaurie Mansion did not return to normal life right away after the fire, and the violent crowd left it in ruins. For a long time, it stood broken, dark and empty, like a place trying to hide its own past. But as the years passed, people repaired it, sold it, and gave it new purposes. At different times, it became a school, a place for music learning, apartments, and later a private home again. Still, no matter how much it changed, something heavy seemed to follow it. Every new owner didn't just receive a building, they also inherited a disturbing history that refused to disappear. As repairs began over the years, workers slowly realized that the horror linked to the house had not been fully uncovered. The attic, once known for its cruelty, was not the only place where terrible things had happened. The first major sign came in the late 1800s. During repair work, builders removed damaged wooden flooring in one of the upper rooms. Beneath it, they found a hidden space that had been carefully sealed. Inside that space were human bones. These were not buried in any respectful way. They looked as if they had been placed there on purpose and hidden. When experts looked at the bones, they noticed clear signs of injury. The damage matched the kind of suffering described by those who had rescued victims during the fire years earlier. Despite how serious this discovery was, it did not become public news. The people who owned the house at the time chose silence. They feared that attention would ruin the property's reputation and value. So, the remains were quietly taken away. The floor was fixed, and the story was almost erased. But the house was not done revealing its secrets. In the early 1900s, another round of renovations brought yet another chilling discovery. This time, workers found bones hidden inside a wall. The space had been sealed behind old plaster and had likely not been touched since the 1830s. Once again, the remains showed clear signs of violence and harm. And once again, the people involved chose to keep things quiet. There was little record, no major announcement, and the world continued on as if nothing had happened. Over the decades, this pattern continued. Each time the building changed hands or underwent repairs, something new was uncovered. Bones appeared in strange places, inside walls, under floors, and in areas that had been sealed for over 100 years. It slowly became clear that the house was not just a place where terrible acts had happened. It was, in a very real sense, a hidden burial site that had never been fully explored. The most detailed search happened in the early 2000s. At that time, the mansion was bought by actor Nicolas Cage, and major renovations began. This time, workers used modern tools and were more open about what they found. As they carefully opened walls and floors throughout the house, they documented everything. What they discovered confirmed what earlier findings had suggested. Human remains were scattered throughout the building. Some were small pieces, single bones that might have been missed before. Others were larger, parts of skeletons that had clearly been hidden on purpose. These were not accidents. These were signs of careful concealment. When scientists examined the bones, they found more disturbing details. Many showed clear marks of cutting and other forms of damage. Some bones even showed signs of healing. meaning the victims had survived their injuries for a time before passing. Others showed no healing at all, suggesting that death came quickly, or that the harm may have happened after death. All of this pointed to one painful truth. The attic, known for its horrors, was only part of the story. It may have been used for victims who were still alive, or for more recent acts at the time, but the remains hidden deep within the walls told of something older. They suggested that these acts had been happening for years, long before the fire exposed anything to the outside world. The deeper workers looked, the clearer it became that the mansion held far more than anyone had imagined. It was not just a place tied to one shocking event. It was a place where many lives may have been lost, quietly and secretly, over time. This leaves a question that still has no clear answer. How many people truly suffered and passed away within those walls? No complete record exists, and much of what happened was hidden so carefully that it may never be fully known. However, keep watching more discoveries. The silent truth behind the walls. Records from the past tell us that about 12 victims were discovered in the attic when the horrors of the mansion were first exposed. But as time went on and more parts of the house were opened during repairs, more human remains were found hidden inside the walls. These findings suggest that at least another 12 people may have died there. And even then, some historians believe the true number could be far greater than that. It is important to understand that not every victim would have been left behind in the house. Some may have been buried quietly in the garden, while others could have been thrown into the river or disposed of in ways that left no sign at all. In those days, the disappearance of enslaved people often went unnoticed by authorities, which made it easier for such crimes to remain hidden. Because of this, the number of lives lost may never be fully known. All the evidence points to something deeply disturbing. This was not a single moment of madness or a sudden act of cruelty. Instead, it appears to have been a long and repeated pattern of harm that continued for years. The woman at the center of it all did not act without thought. She seemed to learn over time, becoming more careful about hiding what she had done. She built secret spaces, found ways to cover her actions, and created a system that allowed her to continue without being stopped. What makes this story even more chilling is the life she lived outside those hidden rooms. She was known as a respected and admired hostess in New Orleans. She welcomed important guests into her home, entertained them with elegance, and held gatherings that brought together the city's most powerful people. All of this happened in the same house where terrible suffering was taking place just above their heads. While laughter and music filled the lower floors, pain and fear lived quietly upstairs. This part of the story leaves a heavy feeling. It is not only about the cruelty itself, but also about how it was allowed to continue. People around her began to notice strange things. Neighbors saw that enslaved individuals would suddenly disappear. Authorities were called at times, and yet nothing truly changed. Visitors heard rumors, but chose to ignore them. It seems that many people either knew something was wrong, could have guessed it, or simply decided not to look too closely. That silence played a powerful role. By turning away, by pretending not to see, they allowed the suffering to go on for years. It becomes clear that this was not just one person's actions, but also a failure of a whole community that chose comfort over truth. After the fire in 1834, the house quickly gained a reputation for being haunted. People claimed they saw shadowy figures standing by the windows. Others spoke of hearing strange sounds at night, like cries or the clinking of chains. Over time, many who lived in or visited the house shared stories of feeling uneasy, as if something unseen was watching them. Some even believed they had witnessed full ghostly appearances. These stories spread quickly and made the mansion famous for its supposed supernatural activity. It became a place that attracted those curious about ghosts and the unknown. People came not just for history, but for the thrill of fear and mystery. But there is something important to think about here. When people focus only on ghosts and strange sightings, it can take attention away from the real truth. It becomes easier to talk about spirits than to face what truly happened to real people. The house turns from a place of suffering into a kind of dark attraction, where fear is treated like entertainment. The people who lost their lives there were real human beings. They had names, even if those names are no longer remembered today. They had families, feelings, and dreams that were taken away from them. Their lives mattered, and their stories deserve to be remembered with respect. When everything is reduced to ghost tales, their humanity slowly fades. In a way, it repeats the same kind of erasure they experienced in life. It is important to remember that what was found inside the mansion is not something mysterious or magical. The bones discovered are real proof of terrible acts carried out by a person who had complete control over others because of the system of slavery. These remains show that the truth may have been even worse than what people first believed back in 1834. More people likely suffered and passed than anyone realized at the time. The hidden spaces inside the house suggest that the cruelty had been going on for much longer than just the final discovery in the attic. As time passes, new research continues to reveal more details about the woman behind these actions. Each new piece of information helps us understand not only what happened, but how it was allowed to happen. And with every discovery, the story becomes less about mystery and more about remembering the real people whose lives were lost within those walls. So, stay tuned. A beautiful house with dark truths that refuse to fade. For almost 200 years, the LaLaurie Mansion has carried a chilling name. Many people have called it the most haunted house in America. Over time, ghost hunters, paranormal researchers, and curious visitors have all tried to figure out what might still be inside its walls. Some have spoken about strange noises in the night. Others have claimed to see shadowy figures moving through the windows. Many visitors describe a heavy, uncomfortable feeling, like something is not right. These experiences are often linked to the belief that the spirits of those who suffered there are still present. But the story of the mansion goes far beyond ghosts and fear. The building itself has gone through many changes since the events of 1834. It has been repaired, sold, and given new uses again and again. Each time workers have opened up parts of the house, they have discovered things that were either unknown before or carefully hidden. Every new finding has slowly added more detail to a story that most people only know in a simple form. In recent years, historians and investigators have taken a closer look. They gathered information from past renovations and combined it with old records, letters, and reports that had been ignored or hidden for generations. By putting all of this together, they began to see a much clearer and darker picture. What they found suggests that the well-known story of the mansion does not tell everything. The attic, which shocked the people of New Orleans when it was first discovered, was only one part of a much larger and more disturbing truth. There were other hidden places in the house, spaces behind walls, beneath floors, and in areas that early rescuers never reached. These secret spots held evidence that the suffering inside the mansion was deeper and more widespread than anyone first believed. The house, with its elegant outside, was hiding a painful reality during the 1830s. What happened inside those walls was far worse than what most stories have shared. Newly uncovered documents from France have also given more insight into the life of the woman at the center of it all. After leaving New Orleans, she is believed to have lived peacefully in Paris for many years. She moved within polite society and stayed in contact with her family back in Louisiana. There are no signs that she ever felt regret for what she had done. She did not seem worried about being punished or brought back to face justice. Some stories claim that she later returned to New Orleans in secret and passed there, in the same city where her crimes took place. Other records suggest she stayed in Paris until her death and was buried there. Even now, no one can say for sure where she was finally laid to rest. In a strange way, this mystery matches her life. A life filled with secrets and hidden truths. Today, the mansion still stands on Royal Street. It has been renovated several times since actor Nicolas Cage once owned it and later sold it due to financial problems. It is now a private home, and people are not allowed to go inside. However, tour guides still bring visitors to stand outside the building. Night after night, groups gather to hear the story, listening closely as the past is retold in the shadows of the same walls. Even now, no one truly knows what may still be hidden inside. It is possible that modern repairs have removed all the physical evidence of what once happened there. But it is also possible that some hidden spaces remain untouched. There could still be sealed areas, small compartments, or closed-off sections that have never been opened. If that is the case, then some victims may still lie hidden, never found, never named, and never given a proper resting place. The mansion continues to hold on to its secrets, even in the present day. And this leads to a deeper understanding of what the story truly represents. At its heart, this is not just a tale about ghosts or strange happenings. It is a story about human choices and the harm that can come from them. The woman behind these actions was not some magical creature. She was a person shaped by the world around her. She lived in a time and place where certain people were given complete control over others. That power was often abused, and many chose not to question it. Neighbors noticed strange things but stayed silent. Officials looked into reports but did not act strongly enough. Society placed more value on the comfort and image of wealthy individuals than on the lives of those who were suffering. This silence and lack of action allowed terrible things to continue. The bones that were later found inside the walls are not just objects. They are proof of lives that were taken and ignored. They remind us that real people suffered because others chose not to see or speak up. Their pain was overlooked, and their lives were treated as if they did not matter. However, the mansion tells a story that is far more serious than any ghost tale. It shows how dangerous it can be when people turn away from the truth. It reminds us that behind every dark legend, there are real human lives that deserve to be remembered, not forgotten. So, let's know more about the lady that caused everything. The charming lady, everyone admired, and the dark secret, no one wanted to see. Marie Delphine. LaLaurie was born into a life of comfort in New Orleans around the year 1787. From the very beginning, she belonged to a powerful and respected family. Her relatives were part of the Creole upper class, a group known for wealth, strong connections, and high social status. In that world, people cared deeply about family name, property, and reputation, and she had all of it. She grew up well-educated and polished, learning how to carry herself with elegance and confidence. People who met her often described her as warm, graceful, and very charming. She knew how to speak, how to host, and how to make others feel important. Over time, she married 3 different times, and with each marriage, her position in society grew stronger. Each of her husbands was richer and more influential than the last, which helped her climb even higher in the social world. By the time the 1830s arrived, she had become one of the most admired women in New Orleans. She was especially famous for the gatherings she hosted at her grand home on Royal Street. These events were not just simple parties. They were luxurious, filled with fine meals, beautiful decorations, and the most important people in the city. Everyone wanted an invitation. It became a sign of status just to be seen in her home. Guests would arrive dressed in their best clothes, enjoying music, laughter, and lively conversation. The atmosphere was full of beauty and excitement. She moved through the rooms with confidence, welcoming each guest with a smile. People praised her for her elegance, her style, and her ability to bring everyone together. To many, she seemed like the perfect example of grace and high-class living. But behind this bright and polished image, there was something deeply troubling. At that time, New Orleans was built on a system of slavery. Owning other human beings was legal and widely accepted. Enslaved people were forced to work in homes, farms, and businesses across the region. Their pain was treated as normal, and many chose not to think too much about it. The system allowed those in power to live comfortably, while others suffered quietly. Even in such a harsh system, there were still limits. There were rules meant to prevent the worst forms of cruelty. Society expected enslaved people to be treated in certain ways, even if those expectations were far from fair. And yet, whispers began to spread that something very wrong was happening inside her home. People living nearby started to notice strange patterns. Enslaved workers who were once seen regularly would suddenly disappear. One month, a familiar face would be there, and the next month, that person would be gone. New workers would arrive, but after some time, they too would vanish. This kept happening again and again. Those who worked in the household looked different from others in similar situations. They seemed weaker, thinner, and filled with fear. There was a deep sadness in their eyes, something that went beyond what people were used to seeing. It made some neighbors uneasy, though many tried not to think too much about it. One man who lived close by, a lawyer, became especially worried. He decided to look deeper into the situation instead of ignoring it. What he found was disturbing. He learned that she had already been investigated in the past. At one point, she had even been found guilty of mistreating enslaved people and was forced to sell some of them as punishment. But that punishment did not stop her. Instead, she used other people to secretly buy those same individuals back. Through these hidden actions, she was able to continue whatever she had been doing before without much interruption. The lawyer tried to warn others in the area. He shared what he had learned, hoping people would take it seriously. Some listened and began to feel concerned, but many others refused to believe it. They could not imagine that someone so respected, so admired, could be capable of such actions. It was easier for them to ignore the warning than to question someone they looked up to. And so, life went on as if nothing was wrong. The gatherings continued. Guests kept arriving, enjoying the beauty and luxury of the home. Laughter filled the rooms, music played, and the city's most important people kept coming back. Meanwhile, whatever was truly happening inside that house remained hidden. Behind closed doors, away from the bright lights and smiling faces, the truth stayed buried, waiting for the moment it would finally come to light. And this moment was truly terrifying. The day the hidden horror was finally exposed. Everything changed on a warm day in April, in the year 1834. What had been hidden for so long finally came into the open, and it happened in a way no one could ignore. A fire suddenly broke out in the kitchen of the LaLaurie home. In a city like New Orleans, where many buildings were made of wood and stood close together, fire was a serious danger. People nearby quickly rushed over, and firefighters arrived as fast as they could, all working together to stop the flames before they spread further. As they tried to put out the fire, something unexpected came to light. It was discovered that the fire had not started by accident. It had been set on purpose by an older enslaved woman who worked as the cook in the house. She had done something even more shocking. Before starting the fire, she had chained herself to the stove, making it impossible for her to escape. When rescuers reached her, she was still there, weak but alive. She explained in a trembling voice that she had chosen this painful end because she feared something even worse. She believed that if she was taken upstairs again, she would suffer in ways she could no longer endure. In that moment, she begged those around her to go up to the attic. She pleaded with them to look closely and see what had been hidden for so long. Moved by her words and growing concern, the rescuers forced their way up and broke open the attic door. What they found inside that space left them completely shaken. It was something they would never forget. Reports from that time may differ in small details, but they all agree on one thing. The scene was beyond horrifying. Inside the attic were enslaved people who had been treated with extreme cruelty. There were men and women, and some accounts also speak of children. They had been chained in place, unable to move freely, and many had suffered terrible injuries. The suffering they endured was almost impossible to understand. Some had been subjected to rough and painful procedures. Body parts had been cut and placed back in unnatural ways. Some had wounds that showed signs of deep harm. Others had injuries that suggested long periods of pain. A few were still alive when they were found, but they were very weak and close to death. Others had already died, their bodies left in the same space as the living. One newspaper at the time described seeing 7 individuals in a terrible state, hanging and stretched in ways that caused great damage to their bodies. Other accounts spoke of even more disturbing conditions. Some victims had injuries to their faces and bodies that showed careful but cruel actions. Bones appeared broken and forced into strange positions. The details were so shocking that even those who discovered them struggled to fully describe what they had seen. What makes this even more powerful is who the rescuers were. These were not people who were strongly against slavery. They were men who lived in that system and were used to seeing harsh treatment. Yet even they were deeply shaken by what they found. What they saw went far beyond what they considered normal, even in such a difficult time. News of the discovery spread quickly across the city. Within just a few hours, people began to gather outside the mansion. By the time evening arrived, a large crowd had formed. They were filled with anger, not only because of the suffering that had taken place, but also because someone from their own social circle had crossed a line that even they could not accept. The crowd forced their way into the house. Once inside, they began to destroy everything they could reach. Furniture was broken apart. Decorations were torn down. The beautiful rooms that once hosted grand gatherings were left in ruins. The same place that had once been filled with laughter and celebration now stood damaged and broken. But the woman at the center of it all was nowhere to be found. Before the crowd could reach her, she had already escaped. Some stories say she left quickly in a carriage, racing through the streets at great speed. It is said that the horses were driven hard as she made her way toward the water. From there, she boarded a ship and left the city behind. She eventually traveled to Paris, where she lived comfortably for the rest of her life. Reports suggest she died there in the year 1849. Despite everything that had been discovered, she was never put on trial. She was never punished for her actions. She never had to stand and answer for what had happened inside that attic. And so, the truth came out in a single day, through fire and fear. But even with everything revealed, justice never truly followed. What remained was a story that would stay with the city forever, a moment when hidden pain was finally seen, but not fully answered. Now, here's the most disturbing part. The truth that still lives inside the walls. The LaLaurie Mansion is often called haunted, but not in the way people usually think. It is not spirits or shadows that fill that house. What truly lingers there is its past. The weight of what happened within those walls has never fully gone away. It carries the memory of terrible acts that were never properly answered for, and of people whose lives were never truly honored or remembered. Every person who stops to take a picture, every visitor hoping for a thrill, and every storyteller who shares its tale becomes part of this long history that began in 1834. The real question is simple, but important. Are we telling this story in a way that respects those who suffered? Or are we turning their pain into something to entertain ourselves? What was found inside that house was not something mysterious or magical. It was real and deeply painful. The truth is that a powerful woman used her position to harm others, who had no way to fight back or escape. This was not a strange legend. It was a long pattern of cruelty that continued until it was finally exposed. And even then, it went unpunished. Even if the physical remains are no longer there, the story itself still stays within those walls. Time and repairs cannot erase it. The house cannot be separated from what happened inside it. It stands as a reminder, not of ghosts, but of human choices. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.